The sun was setting over the towering skyscrapers of New York City, casting long shadows across the busy streets. Emily Sanders hurried down the crowded sidewalk, her heart still racing from the excitement of her latest performance. She had just finished singing at a small but prestigious jazz club in Greenwich Village, where the audience had applauded her with fervor. Her voice had soared effortlessly through the notes, and the praise she received afterward was overwhelming. But as she walked alone through the city, the echoes of the applause faded, leaving behind a hollow feeling she couldn't shake. Emily had always been a performer. Since she was a little girl, music had been her refuge, her way of expressing emotions that words couldn't capture. With her striking green eyes and flowing auburn hair, she was not only talented, but also strikingly beautiful. People often told her she was destined for greatness, and her career seemed to be heading in that direction. Yet, despite her success, Emily couldn't escape the feeling that something was missing. As she descended the steps into the subway station, Emily's thoughts drifted to her childhood. Growing up in a small town in upstate New York, she had always felt different from everyone else. While her friends dreamed of becoming teachers or doctors, Emily's dreams were filled with melodies and harmonies. She spent hours alone in her room, singing to herself, imagining the day when she would perform on the world's biggest stages. Now that those dreams were becoming a reality, she wondered why they no longer brought her the joy they once did. The station was crowded, as it always was during rush hour. People moved in every direction, a sea of faces blurring together as they hurried to catch their trains. Emily squeezed past a group of tourists, her mind still wandering. She was thinking about the emptiness she couldn't explain, when suddenly, out of the corner of her eye, she saw her. A woman was standing on the opposite platform, her back turned to Emily. But even from a distance, something about her felt familiar. The woman had the same auburn hair cascading down her back, the same height and build. Emily's heart skipped a beat as the woman turned slightly, revealing her profile. It was like looking in a mirror. The woman's face, though partially obscured by the shadows, was identical to Emily's. Emily froze, her breath catching in her throat. Was this some kind of illusion? A trick of the light? She blinked hard, but the woman was still there, now turning to face her fully. Their eyes met across the tracks, and Emily felt a strange pull, as if some invisible force was drawing her towards this mysterious doppelganger. For a moment, neither of them moved. Emily could see the same shock and curiosity reflected in the woman's eyes. It was like looking into her own soul, seeing all the doubts and questions she had tried to bury deep inside. Who was this woman? Why did she look exactly like her? A million thoughts raced through Emily's mind, but before she could make sense of any of them, the woman turned and began to walk away. Without thinking, Emily rushed forward, pushing through the crowd in an attempt to follow her. She dashed up the stairs and across the street, her eyes scanning the crowd for any sign of the woman. But the city was too big, the people too many. She caught a glimpse of auburn hair disappearing around a corner and quickened her pace, her heart pounding in her chest. "Wait!" Emily called out, but her voice was lost in the noise of the city. She reached the corner, breathless and desperate, only to find the street empty. The woman had vanished, as if she had never been there at all. Emily stood there for a long moment, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Had she imagined the whole thing? Was it possible that someone could look exactly like her, down to the smallest detail? The encounter left her shaken, her mind swirling with questions she couldn't answer. As she slowly made her way back to the subway, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something profound had just occurred. It was as if the universe had given her a glimpse of a secret she wasn't meant to see, a connection to a life that wasn't her own. The emptiness she had felt for so long was now filled with a new sense of urgency, a need to understand what had just happened and why. That night, as Emily lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the image of the woman's face haunted her thoughts. She couldn't forget those eyes, so familiar yet so foreign. Who was she, and why did Emily feel as if her life had suddenly been thrown off course? The answers were out there somewhere, waiting to be discovered. And Emily knew she wouldn't rest until she found them. In the darkness of her room, Emily whispered to herself, "Who are you?" But the silence gave her no answers, only the lingering sense that her life would never be the same again. The night after her strange encounter in the subway, Emily drifted into a deep sleep, her mind still buzzing with questions. As her consciousness slipped away, she found herself standing in a place that was both unfamiliar and strangely comforting. It was a small town, nestled in a valley, surrounded by lush green hills. The air was crisp and fresh, filled with the scent of pine trees and wildflowers. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, and the sound of birds singing filled the air. Emily looked around, trying to make sense of her surroundings. The town was quaint, with charming cottages lining the streets, and a few small shops with hand-painted signs. The people who passed by greeted her warmly, smiling as if they knew her. Emily felt a sense of peace here, a feeling of belonging that she hadn't felt in a long time. As she walked down the main street, she noticed a small schoolhouse at the end of the road. The building was old but well-maintained, with a white picket fence surrounding it. A sign out front read, "Oregon Valley Elementary School." Emily felt a strange pull towards the building, as if it were calling to her. Without thinking, she opened the gate and walked inside. The classroom was bright and airy, with large windows that let in the sunlight. There were colorful posters on the walls and a chalkboard at the front of the room, but what caught Emily's attention was the woman standing at the teacher's desk, writing on the board. She had the same auburn hair, the same green eyes, the same face as Emily, but in this dream, she was not Emily. She was someone else entirely. The woman turned and smiled warmly at the children seated in the desks. "Good morning, class," she said, her voice filled with kindness. "Today, we're going to learn about the life cycle of a butterfly." Emily stood frozen in the doorway, watching in disbelief as the children eagerly raised their hands to answer the teacher's questions. The woman moved gracefully around the room, her presence calming and reassuring. There was a contentment in her expression, a quiet joy that radiated from her. Suddenly, the woman looked up and met Emily's gaze. Their eyes locked, and for a moment time seemed to stand still. Emily felt a surge of emotions, joy, sadness, longing, all at once. It was as if she were looking at a version of herself that she had never known, a self that was complete and fulfilled. "Emily," the woman said softly, though her lips did not move. The word echoed in Emily's mind, a whisper that resonated deep within her soul. "You are not alone." Before Emily could respond, the scene began to dissolve. The colors of the classroom faded. The voices of the children grew distant, and soon she was enveloped in darkness. Emily awoke with a start, her heart pounding in her chest. She was back in her apartment in New York, the early morning light filtering through the curtains. But the dream had felt so real. She could still smell the pine trees, still hear the sound of the children's laughter, and most of all, she could still feel the presence of the woman who looked exactly like her, Emma. Over the next few days, the dreams became more frequent, each one more vivid than the last. In these dreams, Emily was Emma, living a simple yet fulfilling life in the small town in Oregon. She spent her days teaching at the school, tending to her garden, and walking through the woods that surrounded her home. There was a sense of peace in these dreams, a contentment that Emily had never experienced in her own life. But as the dreams continued, Emily began to notice something unsettling. The line between her dreams and reality was starting to blur. She would wake up in the morning with the taste of fresh-baked bread in her mouth, or with the smell of wildflowers lingering in her nose. She began to forget where she was, sometimes finding herself expecting to see the rolling hills of Oregon outside her window instead of the bustling streets of New York. Emily's friends noticed the change in her. She became more distant, lost in her thoughts, and distracted during conversations. At first, she tried to dismiss the dreams as just that, dreams. But the emotional connection she felt to them was too strong to ignore. She began to question everything she knew about herself. Was Emma just a figment of her imagination, or was there something more to it? Could she really have a double, a twin she had never known about? Desperate for answers, Emily decided to investigate. She spent hours online, researching everything she could about doubles, twins, and parallel lives. She found stories of people who had experienced similar phenomena, who claimed to have lived other lives in their dreams. But nothing she read could explain the deep emotional connection she felt to Emma. One evening, as she sat in front of her laptop, Emily came across an article about a phenomenon known as doppelgangers, people who look exactly like someone else but are not related. The article described ancient legends and modern sightings of these mysterious doubles and the strange, often unsettling experiences associated with them. Emily's heart raced as she read the stories. Could this be what was happening to her? Had she somehow crossed paths with her doppelganger in the subway, triggering these dreams and the strange connection she felt? The more she thought about it, the more it made sense. But the idea that there was another version of herself out there, living a different life, filled her with both fear and fascination. Determined to find out the truth, Emily made a decision. She would go to Oregon, to the town she had seen in her dreams. She needed to know if Emma was real, if the life she had been living in her dreams was somehow connected to her own. It was a risk, a leap into the unknown, but Emily knew she had to take it. The answers she sought were out there, waiting for her. As she packed her bags and prepared for the journey ahead, Emily felt a sense of anticipation building within her. She was about to embark on a journey that could change everything she knew about herself. And though she didn't know what she would find, one thing was certain: her life would never be the same again. The plane touched down in Portland, Oregon. Just as the early morning fog began to lift from the tarmac, Emily stepped off the plane, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. She had never been to Oregon before, yet everything about this place felt oddly familiar. As she walked through the airport, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being guided by an invisible hand, leading her towards something, someone she was destined to find. The small town she had seen in her dreams was called Silver Creek, a place so remote that it barely appeared on the map. Emily rented a car and drove through winding roads, flanked by towering evergreens and mist-covered hills. The scenery was breathtaking, but Emily's mind was focused on the task ahead. She had no idea what she would find in Silver Creek, but she was determined to uncover the truth about Emma. As she drove into town, Emily felt a strange sense of déjà vu. The streets, the buildings, the people. It was all exactly as she had seen in her dreams. She passed the small shops, the white picket fences, and finally the little schoolhouse at the end of the main street. A sign outside read, Silver Creek Elementary, and Emily's heart skipped a beat. This was the place. Emily parked the car and sat for a moment, trying to steady her nerves. What was she going to say? How could she possibly explain why she was here? Taking a deep breath, she got out of the car and walked toward the school. The morning was quiet, with only the sound of birds chirping in the trees. As she approached the building, she saw a group of children playing in the schoolyard, their laughter ringing through the air. A woman emerged from the school, and Emily's breath caught in her throat. It was her, Emma. She looked exactly like she did in the dreams, right down to the gentle smile that spread across her face as she watched the children play. Emily felt a surge of emotions, relief, fear, and an overwhelming sense of connection. This was real. Emma was real. For a moment, Emily hesitated, unsure if she should approach, but then Emma turned and their eyes met. The recognition was instant, and Emily could see the same shock and curiosity in Emma's eyes that she had felt when she first saw her in the subway. There was no turning back now. "Emma," Emily called out, her voice trembling slightly. Emma froze, her eyes wide with disbelief. Slowly, she walked toward Emily, her steps tentative, as if she were approaching a wild animal. Who are you?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "My name is Emily," she replied, her heart racing. I've been dreaming about you." Emma's eyes widened even more, and she took a step back. "Dreaming about me? How is that possible?" "I don't know," Emily admitted, "but I had to find you. I needed to know if you were real." The two women stood in silence, staring at each other. It was like looking into a mirror, but more than that, it was as if they were looking into each other's souls. Emily could feel the connection between them, something deep and inexplicable that went beyond mere appearance. "Let's go somewhere we can talk," Emma finally said, breaking the silence. "There's a cafe down the street." They walked side by side, neither speaking, both lost in their thoughts. Emily's mind was racing with questions, but she didn't know where to begin. She had come all this way, but now that she was here, she realized she wasn't prepared for what she might discover. The cafe was small and cozy, with wooden tables and a large fireplace that crackled warmly in the corner. They found a quiet table in the back, away from the few other customers. Emma ordered tea for both of them, and they sat in awkward silence until the cups were placed in front of them. "So," Emma began, stirring her tea nervously, "how did you find me?" I've been having these dreams," Emily said, trying to find the right words. "In the dreams, I'm living your life. I'm a teacher, here in this town, at that school. It all feels so real. And when I wake up, I can't shake the feeling that it's more than just a dream." Emma nodded slowly, her eyes fixed on Emily. "I've been having dreams too," she confessed. "In my dreams, I'm someone else, a singer in New York City. I'm performing on stage in front of crowds of people, and I look just like you." Emily felt a chill run down her spine. "That's my life," she whispered. "I'm a singer in New York." They stared at each other, the enormity of what they were saying sinking in. Somehow, they were living parallel lives, each dreaming of the other's existence. But how was that possible? What did it mean? "I've never believed in things like this," Emma said, her voice shaky. "But this is real, isn't it?" "It feels real," Emily agreed, "but I don't understand why or how." They talked for hours, sharing details of their lives, their dreams, and the strange sense of connection they both felt. The more they talked, the more similarities they discovered, not just in their appearances, but in their talents, their personalities, even their fears and insecurities. It was as if they were two halves of the same whole, separated by distance, but connected in some profound, unexplainable way. As the afternoon turned into evening, Emily knew there was one more thing she needed to do. "Can I see your house?" she asked hesitantly. Emma looked surprised but nodded. Of course. They drove to Emma's house, a small, charming cottage at the edge of town, surrounded by trees and wildflowers. It was exactly as Emily had seen in her dreams. As they walked through the rooms, Emily felt a strange sense of familiarity, as if she had been there before. Everything was just as it had been in the dreams, the furniture, the pictures on the walls, even the scent of the flowers in the garden. This is it, Emily said softly, standing in the living room. This is the house from my dreams. Emma watched her with a mixture of awe and fear. What does this mean, Emily? Why are we connected like this? Emily shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. I don't know, she whispered, but I'm glad I found you. Emma smiled, and for the first time since they met, it was a smile of pure joy. So am I. As the two women sat together in the living room, the weight of their discovery settled over them. They had found each other, and in doing so, they had found a part of themselves they hadn't even known was missing. The answers to their questions were still elusive, but for now, it was enough to know that they were not alone. And as the sun set behind the hills, casting a warm glow over the town, Emily and Emma knew that their journey was far from over. They had uncovered the truth, but there was still so much more to understand. The connection between them was just the beginning, and whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The warm light of the setting sun filtered through the curtains of Emma's living room, casting a golden glow over the two women as they sat across from each other. The air between them was thick with unspoken words, each of them struggling to comprehend the reality of their situation. They had been talking for hours, yet it felt as though they had only scratched the surface of the mystery that bound them together. Emily leaned forward, her eyes fixed on Emma. There has to be an explanation for this, she said, her voice tinged with both desperation and hope. People don't just share dreams, memories, and lives like this. It's like we're two halves of the same person. Emma nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. I feel it too, Emily. When I'm with you, it's like I'm seeing another version of myself, a version that made different choices, lived a different life. But how is that possible? We've lived completely separate lives until now. Emily's mind raced as she tried to piece together the fragments of their connection. Maybe it's more than just our appearances or our dreams. Maybe it's something deeper, something spiritual. Could we be connected on a level that goes beyond the physical? Emma hesitated, her eyes searching Emily's face. You mean like a shared soul? The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. It was a concept that defied logic, something that neither of them could fully grasp, yet it felt like the only explanation that made sense. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she considered the possibility. What if they were two souls that had somehow become intertwined, two lives that were meant to be lived in parallel? I don't know, Emily admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But it feels like we're connected in a way that goes beyond anything I've ever known. It's not just about sharing dreams or memories. It's about who we are, our emotions, our fears, our desires. It's like we're experiencing life together, even though we're apart. Emma's eyes filled with tears, and she reached out to take Emily's hand. I've felt so alone for so long, like something was missing from my life. But now that I've met you, it's like that missing piece has finally fallen into place. I don't understand it, but I can't deny it either. A silence settled over them, the weight of their realization sinking in. The connection they shared was undeniable, but what did it mean for their lives? Could they continue living separately, knowing that a part of them was always with the other? Or did they need to embrace this connection fully, whatever that might entail? Emily squeezed Emma's hand, her mind racing with possibilities. What if we're not meant to live separate lives? What if we're supposed to be together, to support each other, to explore this connection and see where it leads? Emma looked at Emily, her eyes filled with both fear and hope. But how? Our lives are so different. You're a singer in New York, and I'm a teacher in this small town. How can we bring those two worlds together? Emily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision before them. I don't know, she said honestly, but maybe it's not about where we live or what we do. Maybe it's about the bond we share and how we can help each other grow. We've been living half lives, Emma, each of us missing something that the other has. Maybe by embracing this connection, we can become whole. Emma wiped away a tear, a small smile forming on her lips. You're right. I've always felt like there was something more out there, something I couldn't quite reach. And now I think that something is you. The words brought a warmth to Emily's heart, and she smiled back at Emma. We can figure it out together. We don't have to have all the answers right now, but I believe that we're stronger together than we are apart. For a moment, they sat in silence, the gravity of their decision sinking in. The connection between them was powerful, something that transcended distance, time, and even logic. It was a bond that could not be easily explained or understood, but it was real, and it was theirs. Emily finally broke the silence. So, what do we do now? Emma thought for a moment, then nodded as if coming to a decision. We take it one step at a time. I want to visit New York, to see your world, to understand the other half of this connection. And maybe you can spend some more time here in Silver Creek to see if this place resonates with you the way it does with me. Emily's heart lifted at the suggestion. I'd like that. We can explore both of our lives and see how they fit together. Who knows? Maybe we'll discover that we're not so different after all. As the evening deepened and the first stars appeared in the sky, Emily and Emma talked long into the night, sharing stories, dreams, and hopes for the future. The connection between them grew stronger with each word, each shared memory, each moment of understanding. They knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that there would be challenges and uncertainties, but they also knew that they had found something rare and precious, a bond that could not be broken no matter where life took them. And as they finally drifted off to sleep, side by side on the couch, they both dreamed the same dream, a future where they were no longer two halves, but one whole, living a life that was richer and more meaningful because they had found each other. In that dream, they were not just Emily and Emma. They were something more, something that defied explanation, but felt as real as the beating of their hearts. They were connected, not just by fate, but by choice, a choice to embrace the mystery of their shared existence and to see where it would lead them together. The morning sun bathed Silver Creek in a soft golden light as Emily and Emma sat on the porch of Emma's cottage, sipping coffee and watching the world wake up. The previous night's conversation had left them both feeling closer and more connected than ever before, but the weight of the decision they had to make still hung in the air. For a long while they simply enjoyed the peaceful silence, the comfort of each other's presence. Birds chirped in the trees, and the gentle breeze carried the scent of wildflowers. It was a perfect morning, but Emily knew that it marked the beginning of a new chapter in both their lives, one that would require them to face the complexities of their connection head-on. Emma was the first to break the silence. Emily, I've been thinking a lot about what we talked about last night, about how we can't keep living these separate lives, pretending that this connection between us doesn't exist. But I'm also scared of what it means to fully embrace this, whatever it is. Emily nodded, understanding exactly what Emma meant. I know, it's not easy trying to fit something so big, so mysterious, into our everyday lives. But I believe that this connection is a gift, even if it comes with challenges. I don't want to ignore it. I want to explore it, to understand it, and to see where it takes us. Emma looked out at the rolling hills in the distance, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. So what do we do? How do we move forward from here? Emily took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. I think the first step is to accept that we're in this together, that we're not alone in this journey. We've already seen how much we can help each other, how much we can learn from each other's lives, but we need to figure out how to make this work in the long term, how to balance our lives while staying connected. Emma turned to face Emily, her expression serious but resolute. I want to stay in your life, Emily. I want to be there for you, to support you in your career, in your dreams. And I want you to be part of my life too, to share in the joys and struggles of teaching, of living in this small town. But I also think we need to give ourselves space to grow individually, to not lose our sense of self in this connection. Emily smiled, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. I couldn't agree more. We're not the same person, and we shouldn't try to be. We need to respect our differences, even as we embrace the bond that ties us together. Maybe that means visiting each other more often, staying in touch regularly, and being honest about our feelings, no matter how confusing they might be. Emma nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. I like that. It feels right. We don't have to have all the answers now, but we can take it one step at a time, together. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the decision they had made settling in. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a start. They both knew there would be challenges ahead, moments of doubt and uncertainty, but they also knew that they had found something rare and beautiful, a connection that transcended the ordinary, that gave their lives new meaning. Finally, Emily spoke, her voice soft but determined. I'll go back to New York today. I have a performance in a few days, and I want to start fresh, with a new perspective. But I'll be back, Emma. This isn't goodbye. It's just the beginning of something new. Emma smiled, her eyes reflecting the warmth of the morning sun. And I'll come visit you in New York. I want to see your world, to understand the other half of this connection. We'll make this work, Emily. We'll find a way. With that, they stood and embraced, the bond between them stronger than ever. It was a promise, a commitment to each other and to the journey they had just begun. As Emily packed her bags and prepared to leave, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. She wasn't leaving Silver Creek behind. She was carrying a part of it with her, a part of Emma that would always be with her, no matter where life took them. The drive back to Portland was quiet and reflective. Emily thought about everything that had happened over the past few days, about how much her life had changed in such a short time. She had come to Oregon searching for answers, and while she hadn't found all of them, she had found something even more important, a connection that made her feel whole, a sense of purpose that had been missing from her life. When she arrived back in New York, the city felt different to her. The noise, the crowds, the fast pace, it was all the same, yet she felt more at peace, more grounded. She wasn't alone anymore. She had Emma, and that knowledge filled her with a quiet strength. That night, as she stood on stage at the jazz club, the familiar lights shining down on her, Emily felt a new song welling up inside her. It was a song that spoke of connection, of two lives intertwined by fate and choice, of a bond that defied explanation but was as real as the music in her heart. As she began to sing, the words flowed effortlessly, the melody soaring through the room like a bird taking flight. The audience listened in rapt silence, captivated by the emotion in her voice, the story she was telling through her music. And as she sang, Emily knew that this was just the beginning. The journey she and Emma had embarked on was far from over, and there were still many questions to answer, many mysteries to explore. But for now, she was content to let the music carry her, to trust in the connection that had brought her to this moment. When the final note hung in the air, echoing through the club, Emily opened her eyes to see the audience on their feet, applauding with a fervor she hadn't felt in a long time. She smiled, feeling the warmth of their appreciation, but more than that, she felt the presence of Emma, a quiet strength that filled her heart. As she took her bow, Emily knew that she was no longer the same person she had been just a few days ago. She had found something more than success, more than fame. She had found a connection that made her life richer, deeper, more meaningful. And with that connection came a sense of peace, a sense of belonging that she knew would stay with her no matter where the road ahead might lead.